In other news, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence says that there is no place for empire and aggression in the Indo-Pacific region, in an apparent reference to China.
Like you, we seek an Indo-Pacific in which all nations, large and small, can prosper and thrive, secure in sovereignty, confident in our values, and growing stronger together. We all agree that empire and aggression have no place in the Indo-Pacific.
Pence said Washington has taken action to promote this vision. He said this includes steps to spur private investment in infrastructure and a pursuit of trade that is free, fair, and reciprocal. The U.S. Vice President was speaking at the opening of a summit of the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. Last month, Pence called for a tougher approach on Beijing and accused China of malign efforts to undermine President Donald Trump. China claims the South China Sea in its entirety. The Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, Vietnam are also claimed to be parts of the sea. For more on that, we are joined by author and columnist Einar Tangen, joining us on the phone from Beijing. Thank you very much once again for joining us, Mr. Tangen. Now, up until recently, there didn't seem to be that much friction when it came to U.S.-China relations, but all of a sudden we see the Trump administration taking such steps, making these comments. What exactly is happening between the U.S. and China?
It's part of a larger tension between the United States, which in Trump's vision, really this is the last time that they can reshape the global world and recenter it around the U.S. It still enjoys political, economic, and military supremacy, and it believes that if it waits 5 years, that China and the rest of the world will be too strong. I mean, if you look at the statistics, the world has been expanding at 6.6% over the last 15 years in terms of world GDP. The U.S. has only been expanding 3.3%. So in this kind of scenario, there's this concern that the U.S. will lose its supremacy, that it will lose its mandate to create a liberal, democratic, capitalist world in an image much like Francis Fukuyama was talking about during the Reagan administration. So Pence is now at this meeting simply to ban these fears that a rising China represents a security threat, and to answer in part China's Belt and Road Initiative with this $60 billion guarantee fund, which it's still a little bit fuzzy, but it would be aimed at infrastructure. And the question is, what does that mean? There's this other narrative, which is this very kind of John Bolton and Pence are uttering this kind of Cold War rhetoric that would seek to, in essence, isolate China as a potential rival to the U.S. and then create this sense that all of these that ASEAN is in danger and must turn to the U.S. on security. The opposite part of that is the growing sense that the world order is deteriorating, that the U.S. is now against the multilateral world trade group and organizations that it once created and championed, and there's uncertainty. People don't know what to do, so they are turning towards very practical things, how to work with China. And the addition of India now kind of being very, very positive towards something like an RCEP, Regional Cooperation Economic Partnership, which involves literally half of the world's GDP, is becoming more and more of a specter, especially for Donald Trump. His desire was to, as I said, unite the world around the U.S., all right, as basically kind of vassal states, much the way he imposed on Mexico and Canada the provision that any kind of trade deals with any kind of non-market economy, as vaguely defined, which would include, of course, China, that they would have to tell the United States what they were doing. If the United States did not agree, they could serve notice and within 2 months sever the existing relationships and leave things open. So it's very simple. You have on one side the economy, people's fears about displacement and change that is being pushed by the United States and Donald Trump, and on the other hand, you have the U.S. planning the claims that there's somehow a direct threat from China.
Mr. Tangent, in other news, we also had some reports that top Democratic and Republican officials had found that China and Russia are pursuing military buildups aimed at neutralizing U.S. strengths, and therefore they had recommended a 3 to 5% annual increase in the U.S. defense budget. Do you believe that this can escalate into something as bad as what we had during the Cold War?
Yes, I mean, if you look dispassionately at the situation, it's more akin to what happened prior to World War I, when you had Great Britain maneuvering to try to curtail Germany's ambitions to go outside. Remember, this was not like World War II. This was Kaiser Wilhelm. He was the grandson of the Queen of England, Queen Victoria. And there was this sense that, this big game would somehow allow peace to be maintained. In actuality, it worked against that. There were military buildups on both sides, and then it led tragically to the loss of lives that we are now witnessing the 100th anniversary of. So, there is real problems with this. Identifying somebody as an enemy often means that they will become your enemy. It can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And in that kind of situation, the world is heading, unfortunately, probably towards a major tragedy. And it's, as I said, unfortunate. In terms of how they're doing it, the latest reports are that China and Russia have supersonic missile superiority, and this is being used as a reason to increase defense budgets. Now, if you look at the U.S. economy and the budgets that Donald Trump has passed, really the only one that has received substantial increases has been the military-industrial complex, which has just gotten an overwhelming amount of money pushed into it. And this is another call to sound the war drums and say that yes, once again we need to be concerned about threats from abroad, although it's not clear that any are happening, and quite the opposite. It seems like they're being manufactured by the administration when it says it's going to unilaterally withdraw from a short and medium range nuclear missile deal that has been in place for 30 years, when it just starts declaring that there are enemy threats from China, from Iran, from all of these other places where basically it's been unilateral pushes and strategies by the administration saying that this is the reason they're acting. So you create the reason that you want to make this sense of urgency. And I think most people in the world see this quite clearly, that this is just a play to put more money into defense as opposed to what it seems the U.S. needs now, which is more into butter and all the kinds of things that the economy needs as the world is facing a 0.5% decrease in world GDP.
Thank you very much, Mr. Einar Tangent, author and columnist, joining us on the phone from Beijing with his take regarding U.S.-China relations.